Welcome to the Lean Blog Podcast. Visit our website at www.leanblog.org. Now, here's your host, Mark Graban.
Hi, this is Mark Graban from the Lean Blog. This is episode number 33 for November 17th, 2007. Our guest today is Jim Huntzinger from the Lean Accounting Summit and also from the Training Within Industry Summit. Today we're going to talk about the most recently held Lean Accounting Summit and some of the current trends in that area. Stay tuned for future podcasts. We have episodes coming up with David Meyer, co-author of Toyota Talent and the Toyota Way Fieldbook, and we also have another couple of episodes with our good friend Norman Bodek. So as always, thanks for listening. You can get all of the past episodes at leanpodcast.org. Well, joining us from Indiana, a previous guest on the podcast, is Jim Huntzinger from the Lean Accounting Summit. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
We've talked before, but wanted to get an update on how things went at this year's Lean Accounting Summit. It was just recently held. I was wondering if you could tell us about what happened there.
Another very good year with it. Probably this year, even more than the previous years, probably even a bit more energy and passion behind the attendees. And you definitely can feel, or I shouldn't say feel, actually tell by just in conversations that they are learning about the topic and understanding it better in their organizations. Not only my own experience in my discussions with attendees, but in talking with our group of presenters and thought leaders, got the same feedback from them. They said, there's definitely a maturity to the questions that are being asked from the attendees, and so definitely advancing the knowledge, which in turn means advancing the implementation, integration of lean accounting or accounting for lean into their organizations. Mm-hmm. So that was a very positive step and very reassuring to hear. And also, too, definitely a lot of firms that have been at past summits that returned with a larger contingent of people, and just not only their accounting finance people, but also sales and marketing people, operational people, engineering people, and so forth. So definitely understanding how this is definitely a key function and feature in integrating lean accounting for the whole business enterprise. So that was a very positive thing to see.
Did you tend to have more of a mix of attendees from different functions within the companies, more so than folks from an accounting function?
Yes, yeah, very much so. And that's something we had stressed in previous years. Particularly operational people. With the thing we would usually say would be, the operational people complain about the accountants and the finance people, and here you are. So bring your operational people back with you so you can come together and learn together. And this year, not only were they doing that, but they were bringing sales and marketing, engineering, IT people. So we're bringing even a more broad contingent of people. So that was very positive.
Okay.
And I think will obviously pay off for the firms as they go through this to make the transition, much more positive, because they have, more of the organization involved and knowledgeable.
Yeah. So we're building bridges through lean accounting.
Yes.
Before we talk more about what happened at the summit, could you give a quick recap or summary for folks maybe who haven't listened before of what makes lean accounting in terms of how it's different from traditional accounting mindsets, or how it helps support lean manufacturing implementation?
Yeah, I guess a quick summary is traditional accounting, and again, this is in the context of internal accounting or managerial accounting, not necessarily financial accounting. But traditional accounting obviously was set up and developed for you might call traditional manufacturing, traditional operation, which is more batch manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So the measurements and things and information you collect in transaction you do in traditional accounting really kind of give you counter signals when you're trying to go through a lean transformation. So lean accounting, or a lot of times like we want to refer to it as accounting for lean, are using different measures and using them differently to help promote the changes that are going on from a lean transformation process, and also give you more accurate information as well that basically helps you make better decisions in support of the transformation process you're going through, and ultimately to satisfy the customer better with lower cost, better quality, and better delivery. Mm-hmm. So really, just a change in the way you measure and make decisions in order to support that lean functionality.
Yeah, and so when you make a distinction between, I guess, the semantics of lean accounting versus accounting for lean. I mean, sometimes when people think of lean accounting, do they think in terms of we're doing traditional accounting methods in a lean way, such as somehow taking cycle time out of accounting processes, or can you talk a little bit more about the semantical differences there?
Yeah, and that discussion definition is still going on. But one thing you might say, lean accounting. I mean, you could go in and for like accounts receivable or a traditional type of role or function that accounting does, and just like in manufacturing, and improve the lead time it takes to do that, improve the amount of resources consumed in accomplishing that. So you can definitely go into the accounting specific functions and make improvements there from a time consumption standpoint or resource consumption standpoint, make improvements. Accounting for lean, when we talk about that, is probably more in the context of these things that accounting may do, or information and measures that they gather that give you information that helps you make better decisions from an operational standpoint. And by operational, I don't necessarily mean just manufacturing operationally. I mean from an operational standpoint on any functionality within the organization, whether you're a manufacturing company or service company, but give you better feedback of information to help you make better decisions more quickly and more accurately on the way you manage your business. Mm-hmm. Which again, traditionally that was managerial accounting, and this accounting for lean or lean accounting is functionally different in the fact it's supporting the lean activities that are going on in an organization.
Yeah, and what's one of the classic situations, I guess, where traditional accounting would either start acting counter to some of the lean practices that a company is implementing?
One would be in a sense of trying to get an idea on what your costs are, and from a historical standpoint, that's what drove originally a lot of the internal accounting activities, is just trying to get a grasp on what internal costs were for decision making purposes. Mm-hmm. And traditionally what you use is absorption of overhead, and try to put that across the different activities you're doing to try to understand the cost. Well, the problem with that is the consumption of resources that is actually going on is different from the way you allocate that those costs, overhead costs and so forth, to the product. So one problem with it is it just flat out gives you incorrect information about what your internal costs are. So now you're making decisions off of inaccurate information, which mm-hmm. obviously can lead to poor decisions. And from a lean standpoint, and a lot of this goes around the function or doing what's called value stream costing, is just simply gives you a more accurate cost picture of activities you're doing or products that you're making, so you can basically make better decisions because you have more accurate information on what those costs really are based on the true resource consumption that a product or a value stream is doing, versus in a traditional absorption manner of standard costing function for trying to gather costs.
So one mistake you might be trying to avoid is, let's say, a company mistakenly thinking a certain product line or product family is unprofitable and deciding to shut that down, when in reality, or looking at it through value stream costing type principles, you might decide otherwise, that yes, this actually is contributing to the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of examples of that. This just gives a little plug for AME, Association of Manufacturing Excellence, but I think in the last Target issue that came out, I did an article with Doc Hall, and I can't remember about conundrums, and it kind of walks through some of those very problems that come up on this poor information you get, and then the result of poor decisions you make with this poor or inaccurate information, and how that sometimes it could just be kind of a pain, but other times it can actually be quite catastrophic to the organization.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could tell us about some of the highlights from the different speakers that you had at this year's summit. Maybe what some of the key success stories have been in terms of lean accounting, or what are some of the newer topics that your different speakers talked about?
Well, one thing we had more emphasis on this year than in the past, and we probably want to keep trying to move in this direction in upcoming years, is kind of around product development and Hoshin Connery or policy deployment. We've had things on policy deployment in the past, but had more emphasis with some case studies and some unique visual management tools that help with that strategy deployment process. So we've definitely increased that, and also began trying to expose more to lean product development. And the reason for that, and looking at strictly from a financial picture and using Toyota as the model, is obviously the shop floor Kaizen that everybody has been working on for the last 20, 30 years is very important, and it definitely helps to improve the bottom line of an organization. But if you look at the real power from a financial standpoint, with Toyota, it's really their product and process development, and to them that's kind of almost one and the same, because that's really where they're generating about 85% of their financial advantage is out of that, and their shop floor Kaizens and so forth are really only 15% of that cost advantage. So we're trying to emphasize that more. Now, the importance of the shop floor Kaizen and all that is that's, for Toyota, that's their teaching and learning arena for these managers or engineers as they move up in the organization and get into chief engineer, high-level manager's role. They have that intimate understanding of the organization, the operation, the processes in particular. But they want that intimacy and knowledge there developed, so when they get up in these higher-level positions where they are impacting that 85% of the financial advantage, they're making better decisions. And they just kind of, over the years, just keep churning and churning away at that. So that's the reason we're trying to emphasize that. Just from a financial perspective, that's a very critical, and although in the last few years getting more, play out there in the market, but it's just an area that didn't really tapped into that much yet and really fully understood.
So can you tell us, how does lean accounting help support product development and the types of managerial decisions that leaders and companies would make in the course of developing new products?
But probably maybe use this. I guess try to use this analogy to try to explain it. And this analogy was told to me by Glenn Huntzinger, who was actually the fellow that Toyota hired to help them develop their accounting system for North America. And what he calls it is called the black box. And the black box in this case is, an operation, a plant that, in Toyota's case, the plant that makes cars. And the way he describes a black box is obviously you have inputs, raw material, people, equipment that come into the black box, and then outputs, in their case, cars or whatever product the organization might make. So from a accounting standpoint, obviously from these inputs and these outputs, and he'll draw arrows that go up from the black box, and they do all the traditional accounting chunking, as I call it, and generate financial information and all that. So the difference comes in is Toyota does that like everybody else. Difference comes in is that information doesn't transcend back down into the black box for decision-making purposes. It stays external to the black box. Now the key, I guess back to the question you asked, the product process development, that's what's so key to them, because it's that their ability to make, design excellent systems, you might say in this case for flow and for good problem solving, and execute those systems very well, operate them, and again, the problem solving aspect, and then ultimately improve them. So they're really looking at designing the system right to begin with, learning or executing it very well, then continually improving on both those accounts. And that stuff happens within the black box and is really a result of this product process development process, which gets into the product development process itself, things like Hoshin Connery and policy deployment, and just how critical that is to give them that huge cost, in a sense, margin advantage they have in the market, as well as with just delivering a higher quality, more desirable product. So I guess that's kind of how that relationship is, and that's where it gets into not just the lean accounting, but the understanding of the accounting for lean standpoint.
Sure.
What systems do you have in place to support that, black box system design, system execution, and improvement process, involving not only the system, and by the system to them is the most important part of that system is the people and developing their people.
Oh, certainly. Maybe from some of the speakers or case studies or examples that are being presented, are there certain companies that you could point to as, I guess, being the leaders in terms of applying lean accounting or accounting for lean? Is it kind of the typical suspects in terms of who has been successful with lean in general, or what types of trends are you seeing either in terms of specific companies or industries that are having success with this?
I don't know if there's any specific industries per se, because I think it's kind of been unique to particular companies that have just been willing to, in a sense, grab the ball and run with it. One thing that we do get feedback on, which is always interesting, is people asking us for, can you bring in companies for case studies that have quite a few years of lean accounting experience, and it's kind of funny because, well, if you get somebody that maybe has a good 3 years under their belt doing it, they're actually, relatively speaking, a mature company in doing this, because there just isn't really organizations out there that have done it for a very long period of time. But there are a few that have been involved with it for 3, 4, maybe up to 5 years, and we try to bring them in. We've had, Parker Hannafin, who has been working on this, different, depending on division and plant, they've been working on this for a while. This year, that did a case study, actually, at our first Lean Accounting Summit in 2005, bought a contingent and actually held their global finance meeting there in Manhattan. They all attended the summit. Well, they didn't come back in 2006, and obviously we noticed, and I contacted the CFO. What he told me was, he said, "Wow, we just learned so much at the first summit that we're still up to our necks in applying what we learned there." And they ended up coming back this year as a case study. So that was a very, very good story to hear about, and then have them come back and explain just what they're in the process of going through and still continuing to learn.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you were concerned that they had given up on it, or.
Yeah, well, we didn't really think they'd given up on it, but we were just kind of curious of where they were at.
Yeah.
But it was, like I said, that's the kind of stories we like to hear. Even if they weren't at the 2006 summit, they were diving headfirst into it and making changes and changing their organization for the better. And that's ultimately that's the result we want to get out of it.
Yeah. Great. This was the third summit. You're of course planning on doing one next year. Do you have dates or location already planned out for next year, I assume, that you can share? Yeah.
It is going to be next year, and we're going to have it in Vegas, it looks like, next year. Let me make sure I verify the dates. And it'll be September 17th and 18th.
Okay.
Will be the summit itself, and then of course we'll have day of workshops. That's one thing we did this year. I won't say differently, but had even a few more workshops associated with the summit this year than we've had in previous years. So we definitely get a very strong attendance at the workshops, just people to try to get even a little bit more intimate understanding of particular topics associated around this subject matter.
Yeah. Well, and then hopefully, even with doing the event in Las Vegas next year, you'll still have good attendance at the workshop, so people won't be too distracted by.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah, we hope so.
Well, great, and people can find more information about that. The website for the Lean Summit again is. Yeah,
www.leanaccountingsummit.com. So Lean Accounting Summit, all one word.
Okay.
And so they can obviously get information about the conference, dates, location, registration. There's a resource page on there that lists books on the subject. And here pretty soon, one thing we're going to try to do differently this year is get our agenda in place even earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to get our agenda up by December, before the end of the year, so people can get a good look at what's going to be offered at next year's summit. Although there's still a link on there to look at this last year's summit too, to get an idea of what we've had this past year.
Okay, real good. And then your attention will shift a little bit. The other thing that's exciting that you're involved in is work around the training within industry program. And I wonder if you could tell us what plans are for this year's TWI Summit.
Yeah, this year's TWI Summit. Last year was the first year for it, so I guess the inaugural event. So this next year, and it's going to be in May 6th and 7th, 2008, down in Orlando, Florida. And we're excited about this. Again, this is definitely something that's growing. Just actually, even the last week, I've got a couple phone calls about not necessarily even about the summit itself, but just about people interested about learning more about TWI and its impact and influence and contribution to their lean transformation, mm-hmm. and really learning to understand that more. So that knowledge is definitely spreading and getting out there, and people are getting more and more engaged with what TWI is and how it can help them as an organization, and how it can help them as an organization with their lean transformation. So we're very excited about this. We're at this year's summit. Obviously, still go through some of the basics, just because people are still learning about it. What TWI is and yep. functionally, how they use it. But one thing we are going to a couple things we're going to emphasize more at this next year's TWI Summit. One is kind of on the people side of lean, or the cultural mm-hmm. issues and changes the organization need to go through, and how TWI has and still does play a significant role with that for a new organization going through this, as well as within Toyota. TWI is still very much a part, integrated in Toyota even today. And another thing we're going to add to this year's summit is do some workshops. Last year we just had just the summit, day and a half of summit, mm-hmm. and this year, similar to the Lean Accounting Summit, we're going to add in some workshops, and that's actually what's called the J programs, which are the programs that TWI developed, job methods, job instruction, and job relations training, and actually have that training available not during the summits itself, but in the days afterwards, so people can actually go through that J program training, and probably even have something maybe like a TWI 101 to kind of give people a basic idea of what TWI is about and how it can help their organization as well. Maybe like a half-day workshop on that.
Oh, great. So those J programs will be presented pretty much by the book as they were designed through
yes.
through the TWI program. Neat.
Yes, through the TWI program. And our goal for that is to get that information and agenda up by next month, by November, so people can actually start going to the website, which mm-hmm. is www.twisummit.com, all one word, and just get an idea of what's going to be talked about. And again, same thing as Lean Accounting Summit website. You can go there and click on a link, and it'll show you what last year's agenda was mm-hmm. as well, just to get a feel for it.
Well, great. Well, I'm certainly hoping I can attend that next year. The TWI approach is being somewhat rediscovered within healthcare and within hospitals as well, which I think is great proof to how applicable and transferable, not just lean, but the TWI methodology. We're kind of reinventing the wheel, because I know there's some great references back to the heyday of TWI during World War II, of how that was being applied to healthcare. So it's good that that's being rediscovered. Yeah,
and that's to every, with the healthcare costs there are today, that's to everybody's advantage.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, thanks for sharing what's going on in the lean accounting world and with the summits. Appreciate you sharing that with us. For people listening, if you want links to the websites or previous discussions that Jim and I have had, you can visit the main podcast page at leanpodcast.org, or you can go to leanaccountingsummit.com or TWIsummit.com leanblog.com to learn more, or I imagine if people want to contact you, Jim, that they can do that through your web pages?
Yes, certainly, most definitely.
Okay.
And I appreciate your efforts and support on this with what you're doing, Mark, as well. And I really enjoy doing these podcasts with you.
Well, thanks. It's good having you, and hopefully we'll get to talk again, do another podcast soon.
Okay, great.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Lean Blog Podcast. For Lean news and commentary updated daily, visit www.leanblog.org. If you have any questions or comments about this podcast, email Mark at leanpodcast@gmail.com.